Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Anthony the Mooch Scaramucci back with us. We'll chat with Anthony in just a little bit, but first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So let's get right into our big things of the week. Let's start with Minneapolis, and let's let Donald Trump set the table for what we're going to talk about.
It couldn't have been a nicer conversation. And in fact, I said to my people, I said, it's hard to believe that's the same guy I watch on television, or I watch in the debate not doing so well, or because we had a very reasonable conversation, very good conversation. If you believe the conversation, he'd like to get this thing over with.
The message is out that Tom Homan is in.
Yeah.
Commander Bovino is supposedly leaving Minneapolis along with some CBP agents. Is this a pullback?
I don't think it's a pullback. It's a little bit of a change. Everybody in this room that has a business, you make little changes. Bovino's very good, but he's a pretty out there kind of a guy. And in some cases, that's good. Maybe it wasn't good here. But you have to understand, when I watch some of the people that I've been watching over the last few weeks, these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid agitators. These people aren't normal, like OG, that, they're incensed about anything. How do you get incensed when you go into a state and you're taking criminals out? You're taking monsters out, murders. We take out 25 murderers. We take out drug dealers. We take out a whole group of people by the thousands. And if we get one person a little bit wrong, headlines. But they don't talk about all the tremendous, the reason that we have Minnesota crime down. I talk about that because it's only down for one reason. We took out so many criminals. Well, I think the whole thing is terrible. I don't like the fact that he was carrying a gun that was fully loaded and he had 2 magazines with him, and it's pretty unusual. But nobody knows when they saw the gun, how they saw the gun, everything else. Bottom line, it was terrible. Both of them were terrible. The other was terrible, too. And I'm not sure about his parents, but I know her parents were big Trump fans. Makes me feel bad anyway. But, I guess you could say even worse. They were tremendous Trump people, Trump fans. And, the daughter was, she was, I don't know if you could say radicalized, maybe not. I don't know. But I hate to see it. I hate to see that.
Everything's great in Minneapolis. One person, we get one person a little bit wrong. Or maybe 2 innocent U.S. citizens get murdered. Maybe that's what we're dealing with here. Crime is down in Minneapolis. Oh, I didn't know that. 2 people just got murdered in cold blood in the last 2 weeks. Crime is down. This guy is just all over the place. He's crazy, but, I feel bad, but, one was a Trump fan, one wasn't. Like, what does that have to do with anything? What kind of sociopath in the wake of 2 people, innocent people, U.S. citizens, getting shot to death in cold blood at point-blank range? What kind of sociopath in that narrative talks about whether the families support him or not? And worse, he implies, I got a little more compassion for the family who supports me. Like, what the fuck? How is this guy sitting in the Oval Office? That's the biggest question of all. But, what we're seeing here is a cover-up, again, just like Epstein. What we're seeing here is a fascinating abandonment of the Second Amendment by Republicans, because all of a sudden, you shouldn't bring guns. You shouldn't bring guns. Well, isn't that the whole argument of the Second Amendment, that you should have the right to bear arms and legally bring guns? And also, if I'm not mistaken, haven't they been saying that the whole reason for the Second Amendment was drafted so that we, the people, can rebel against an out-of-control government, a rogue government that's using its military and its levers of power against us, the people? What happened to all of that 2A shit? Where did it go?
Well, the NRA feels that 2A shit is still very valid and we should be paying attention. So you Republicans get your fucking foot surgically removed from your mouth because you're so twisted up. I'm so mad today, Andy. I'm really mad.
I can see that.
I am.
The big question is, he lied to you guys over Epstein. He's lied to you over bringing down inflation. He's lied to you about America First. and focusing on Americans in need. Now he's lying to you when he says, I'm a 2A guy. He's not a 2A guy. He just told you not to bring your fucking guns. What kind of 2A guy says that?
Unless you're invading the Capitol, then it's okay.
Right, exactly. Unless you're Kyle Rittenhouse, who gets to walk down the street during an actual riot, walks down the street with an AR-15 and then kills 2 people. And he becomes a fucking folk hero. And they pay his legal bills. And he's on every fucking right-wing podcast. Alex Preddy brings his gun, which he concealed, although he has a right to bring his licensed weapon concealed. He never brandished it, although they said at the beginning he did. And then, obviously, a week later, the DHS put out its own review, and not one word of mention about a gun being brandished. So that was all bullshit by Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem, Donald Trump, and Greg Bovino. Greg Bovino, by the way, Donald Trump calls him an out there kind of guy. I guess that's the new label for a little Gestapo freak, okay? Look, this is a fucking mess, and for him, and it's not getting any better. And he can bring in Tom Homan and push out Bovino. I mean, that's like shitting your pants and changing your shirt. So I don't know what's going to change there. Homan had a press conference yesterday morning. He was like trying to change the tone and the strategy and calm things down. And last night, Trump contradicted everything. We're not scaling back the agents. We're not pulling anybody back, plowing forward. We also have an interesting thing that happened yesterday at the monthly ass-kissing session, also known as the monthly cabinet meeting, where they all go around the table and tell Donald Trump how fucking amazing he is. The one person who didn't speak was DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. She sat there the entire time, silent, didn't say a word. And that to me is very telling, even though she went on Fox later that night and continued her doubling down bullshit. Look, people are expecting a Trump pivot. They're expecting Trump to turn down the temperature. He's not turning down the temperature. He can never turn down the temperature. A thermostat does not exist in his DNA. The only thing he can do is raise the temperature, heighten the incendiary, violence-inciting rhetoric, because he loves the chaos. He thrives on the chaos and the cruelty and the violence. It's the blood that runs through his veins. It's the air that he breathes. So after this supposed pivot, what did he do when Minnesota Rep. Ilhan Omar was attacked at her town hall? He called her a fraud and said that she likely sprayed herself, because that's who she is. Yesterday, in a post, he called Alex Preddy an insurrectionist. An insurrectionist. Same guy who literally pardoned 1,500 insurrectionists. But Alex Preddy, who was a ICU nurse at a VA hospital, who literally died trying to help a woman who real men with masks pushed with both hands aggressively to the ground. That's who the insurrectionist was. And then there's this video that came out where they show him yelling at a car full of Border Patrol agents and spitting at them and then kicking out their taillight. And they're using this video as if somehow that's like an aha moment. Like, see, he's not such a calm, great guy. He's not a man of peace. He's an insurrectionist. They're citing this video as justification for him to be murdered in cold blood at point blank range. It's just unbelievable. That happened a week before he was killed. What does that have to do with anything? And the big question is, were the agents involved in that altercation at the shooting where he was murdered? Was it the same agents? Did they, in a premeditated fashion, did they carry that anger over him into the following week? And were they just so fucking jacked up the minute they saw him that it was just like, he was done. He had no chance. A lot of questions. And the DHS investigating this, there has to be a legit, fair, independent, and transparent investigation here. It has to involve a serious FBI. It has to involve both the criminal and civil rights units of the Department of Justice, and it has to involve Minnesota, the state and local authorities. Last thing I want to say about this is Bruce Springsteen comes out with a song called Streets of Minneapolis, just like he did after 9/11 with his album The Rising. He responds in a way that we rely on our artists to respond to these kinds of tragedies, these injustices, because they do it in a way that nobody else can do it. Here's some lyrics from that song. Against smoke and rubber bullets, in the dawn's early light, citizens stood for justice, their voices ringing through the night. And there were bloody footprints where mercy should have stood, and 2 dead left to die on snow-filled streets, Alex Preddy and Renee Good. Amen, brother. The other thing that happened this week is this raid in Georgia on the election office, which DNI Tulsi Gabbard was at. Someone in her position should never be at a law enforcement operation, so that's like really weird. You know, was she investigating foreign involvement in our Georgia election again? What is her role going to be going forward as we approach the midterms? That's something to watch, folks. The votes were counted in Georgia 3 times in 2020. 3 times. And every time concluded that there was no widespread voter fraud or election fraud. At the time, the governor, Brian Kemp, and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, they both rebuked Trump's claims of election fraud.
Both Republicans.
Both Republicans, yeah. You know, Raffensperger, if you remember, was the one on the phone where Trump said, I just need to find 11,000, whatever. And the DOJ, the DOD, the DHS, the DNI, the FBI, the NSA, the CISA, all the government's national security agencies, all the election officials, they all said the election was the most secure in history. But that's not what Donald Trump cares about. Donald Trump cares about creating chaos and confusion. But the key question is what happens to these ballots, 700 boxes of ballots and other data, and laptops that were taken from Georgia. I don't know. To me, what happens going forward is the bigger question between now and the midterms. Like, I don't like what happened in Georgia, but I'd be more concerned if, like, there's some new shit that happens in Pennsylvania, for example, you know,
Well,
Michigan.
This is kind of new shit. I mean, the FBI came and took ballots.
No, but I mean to impact
A new election.
a new election. Like, because there's nothing going to change in Georgia. I mean, I'm not even sure what the point of this is other than Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, like, just stroking their boss's crippling insecurities and placating his ego.
Well, it's a dry run for getting a warrant to go in and take ballots.
Yeah, well, some people are talking about this as a test to see the reaction. What happens from the Georgia officials?
Not much.
Well, Fulton County's going to be filing suit today.
Sure.
And we'll see what that suit's about. And we'll see what ruling will come out of that, what action might be forced on the administration.
I fully expect the reason they have Tulsi Gabbard there is they are going to frame this as a national security issue in order to basically make it drag incredibly slowly in the courts. Because once it's a national security issue, it gets elevated to different judges possibly, or it does. There's so many issues they're going to throw in this thing because they're lying about everything. And he owns the Justice Department, so they will do basically what a defense... Actually, they will do more. If you hire a defense attorney, he would probably be honest to the point where he doesn't break his own oath. Whereas the Justice Department now, many of the people will just break the oath and they are beholden to nothing.
Look, much of what we see Donald Trump doing has consistently been a distraction to stop journalists from talking about Minneapolis, Epstein, a lot of these things that he's done, a lot of these arrests and indictments and investigations, they've gone nowhere. You know, Don Lemon, more breaking news this morning. Don Lemon was just arrested because he was reporting from inside a church in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And there's laws that say that people who are in a church or a synagogue, they have a First Amendment right to exercise their religious freedom without having protests. And there was a protest in there, but Don Lemon and his producer were covering the protest as journalists, because that's what Don Lemon is. He's a fucking journalist, okay? Who's a CNN anchor, and now he's an independent journalist, and a damn good one. He's got incredible man on the street kind of reporting that he's been doing. And so he's been arrested. But that's going to go nowhere. It's the same shit with, like, James Comey and Tish James and all the rest of them. Like, these investigations are designed to intimidate, to scare, to tamp down opposition, to limit the media, the press, their ability to report the news. So I don't disagree that Trump is going to continue to do more and more shit over and over and over again. And when it comes to this election coming up in November, he is going to do everything humanly possible to not just influence that election, but literally steal it. That said, I think there's reason to believe that, like in a lot of these cases, he's just pissing in the wind. you know? And so I'm not getting hysterical about it yet. I just need to see more things happening to really raise the red flag. We'll see. We can count on him to try. All right, let's get to our winners and losers.
My loser, Pam Bondi's suggestion in a letter on Saturday, shortly after Preddy's killing, that Governor Tim Walz could restore the rule of law in Minnesota by handing over the state's voter rolls. My winner, Governor Tim Walz, who in response to Pam Bondi said, I think everybody understands that request was totally unrelated to anything on the voter files. I would just give a pro tip to the Attorney General. There's 2 million documents in the Epstein files we're still waiting on. Go ahead and work on those.
My winner is Luigi Mangione, because federal judge Margaret Garrett has just ruled that prosecutors may not be able to seek the death penalty. My loser is freedom of the press, the fact that multiple independent journalists were arrested along with Don Lemon for their coverage of the protests in the church does not bode well for the First Amendment.
My winner is Don Lemon, because he will soon be released, and these bogus charges against him will be dropped or eventually dismissed in court, and he's now a folk hero whose career just got another solid jolt. My loser, Greg Bovino, who Trump removed as the jacked-up little Gestapo freak who headed ICE operations in Minneapolis and was clearly the inspiration for Captain Stephen J. Lockjaw, the villainous, deranged, right-wing, undocumented, immigrant-hunting military officer portrayed by Sean Penn in the film One Battle After Another. And that gets us to the Weekly Rant. Ever since the November 24 election, I've been calling Donald Trump and his thugs the gang that can't shoot straight, and that the much-feared fall of our beloved democracy would never ultimately happen because they're too ignorant, incompetent, impulsive, and chaotic to undo 250 years of history's greatest democracy. Since Trump took office, we've seen this tumultuous, lawless gang wildly shoot from the hip in 100 different directions every minute of every day, spraying America with errant bullets in a frenzied, often disorganized attempt to dismantle and destroy our democratic institutions, norms, and boundaries. And now, the bullets are more than metaphorical, resulting in the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. And now we're also witnessing internal chaos at DHS. As reported yesterday in the New York Times, we are seeing the infighting. We see them playing the blame game. They rushed out immediately after both shootings, calling Alex and Renee domestic terrorists. They labeled Alex an assassin who came armed, brandishing a gun, and who obstructed and attacked agents, who he came to massacre. We see Trump throwing Bovino under the bus, replacing him in Minneapolis with Tom Bagel Cash Homan. We see senior White House Nazi Stephen Miller distancing himself from this fiasco, blaming his own lies about Preddy on Border Patrol's initial report. And because Trump will never personally accept blame, more heads will have to roll. It can't be just Bovino, and it's not likely going to be Miller. So is Ice Barbie Gnome next? If she doesn't resign or get fired, it's likely she'll be impeached. Not a good look for Trump. That leaves the out-of-control agents. Will they escape accountability? Or, bowing to public and public pressure, will Trump ultimately throw them under the bus? The truth is, they would seem like the easiest, most obvious targets of Trump's blame game. Just think about the personal benefit to him publicly and politically, specifically outside of hardcore MAGA cultists and among key swing voters, if those agents were to be arrested on murder charges. You know, call me crazy, but Don Lemon getting arrested and these two guys not being arrested, there's something wrong in America right now. All right, let's get to Anthony Scaramucci. He is the founder and managing partner of global investment firm SkyBridge and founder and chairman of SALT, a global thought leadership forum and venture studio. He's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and a board member of the Federal Enforcement Homeland Security Foundation, and the author of 5 books, including From Wall Street to the White House and Back, and The Little Book of Bitcoin, What You Need to Know That Wall Street Has Already Figured Out. He also hosts 2 podcasts, Open Book, and along with Katty Kay, he co-hosts The Rest is Politics US. And he's, of course, well known for the 11 rollercoaster days he served in the first Trump White House as communications director, after having served on Trump's finance committee and then on his presidential transition team. Anthony, welcome back into the back room.
Good to see you, Andy. How are you?
Good. Well, we got a bunch of things I want to talk to you about, but I got to ask you the most important question.
Yeah.
You were all set for tonight? You got your Melania movie ticket?
Well, if you go on Craigslist, you can get $50. Okay, did you see that? So
No.
they'll pay you $50. You get free admission.
You can get paid
but
to
they-
go and go, what? Oh,
Paid
interesting.
to go,
Okay.
but there's an auditor in the theater, and you got to stay for the whole thing. At the end of the whole thing, you get a $50 gift card.
Oh, all right. Well,
Yeah. So if you want to go, I mean, they'll pay you to go to the movie.
I don't think I would do it. For
But
less than
the
75.
sycophants were at the Trump Kennedy Center now. So it used to be called the Kennedy Center, but it's now the Trump Kennedy Center. So pretty amazing, right?
Yeah. Look, I made a movie and I had HBO fund it, and to me, it's $40 million for the film and 35 to promote it is insanity. Insanity. I don't know what the ultimate motivation is there, but that is just crazy.
Without any soundtracks, right? So in other words, if you look at the documentaries, if they've got to purchase music rights
Sure.
for the documentaries, they usually go, pretty big ticket, but this doesn't have any of that. So listen, 28 million of the 40 was to the Trump family for the licensure of the material.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, that's a small drop in the bucket of the 1.5 billion that the New York Times says that the President Trump has collected during the first year of his presidency. But we know that that's a low number. But listen, a very dangerous time in America. We're gonna prosecute adversaries of the president. We're gonna use the Department of Justice to come
let's
after
talk about that because there's breaking
journalists.
news this
I mean,
morning.
so we're
Don Lemon. I mean,
no,
what the hell?
We're in a very dangerous, slippery slope. I've said it consistently. I said it before the election. I've said it frankly since 2019. Is a very dangerous time for America. But I will say this: Trump is a byproduct of elitism, arrogance, and Trump is a byproduct of a failure of the establishment to help the working poor and the lower middle income people that are really struggling. And so there's a culture war going on, whether we like that or not, Andy, that's going on. Trump is winning that culture war, by the way. The Democrats are in complete disarray. His success as a politician is directly related to the failure of the Democratic Party. You have to just accept that. So the only politician that they put up against him, and this is before he was sundowning, Joe Biden beat him handily, beat him like a drum, to use Joe Biden's own words. But you put Kamala Harris in an impossible situation, 107 days to beat Donald Trump. He was beating her on the culture war. She wouldn't go into the Lion's Den of Fox News or the podcast hosting community, and she raised a ton of money, and she was very well organized for the debate, and she's a nice person, but she didn't have the name recognition even. You know what the most searched phrase on the evening of the election, November 2024? Did Joe Biden drop out? That was the number one search phrase on Google. So we did her a disservice, the democracy a disservice, and now we're living with Donald Trump, and he's going to get worse. Okay, so I'm going to stipulate for your viewers and listeners that as exhausting as the last year has been like he's been in office for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, but you know what? He's only been in office for 1 year with 3 years to go, and he is going to get worse. And I will stipulate to people, it will go exponential after the midterms, because no matter who wins the midterms, the Republicans or the Democrats, not going to matter. Trump is going to see these last 2 years of his power as a time to go crazy and full nihilism, full narcissistic nihilism. So I don't know. At some point, you're going to have to ask yourself, is some politician going to stop him? So I talked to Democrats. They're not going to stop him. They're very clear about that. I talked to Republicans. They're not going to stop him.
You don't see the beginning of some kind of pushback happening? Like something has changed a little bit, which could lead to something bigger, or could not go anywhere.
Because Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins said get rid of Kristi Noem. Is that why? No, I don't see anything gigantically changed. Okay, now people have told me that Thune and McConnell went to him before his trip to Davos and said, okay, so if you invade Greenland, we're going to impeach and remove you. I don't know if that's true or not. But where are they going to find the 20 senators, the Republican senators that they need to get that removal? That I don't know. Now, they also told him that there would be all types of other things that happen from the allied community And of course, the bond market dropped on him and the stock market, so he blinked. But, your viewers and listeners should know we were running a military preparation for the invasion of Greenland. Okay, so that's how crazy we've gotten in the country. We're going to attack an allied country where we have a treaty since 1951 that allows us to do whatever we think we need to do from a global Western alliance, NATO alliance, national security, international security perspective. Not enough for Donald Trump. And so he wants to invade and flag Greenland. So, and by the way, we were running exercises, military exercises, and there were troops lawyering up because a lot of the troops were like, okay, I'm not going to attack a NATO allied country, right, result of which I'll be in mutiny. And so then what are my legal recourses to disavow what I perceive to be an illegal order?
Now, how much
so
do you
that's
think...
that's where we are now.
Yeah.
So we have to tell people where we are, because where we are is so shocking to so many people. They're sitting around saying, we can't really be there. We are a group of people that don't like the truth, Andy Ostroy. We don't like the truth, so we pretend it doesn't exist, and we live in some realm of
I like how
denial.
you just said my last name, like my mother would be like Andy Ostroy.
Yeah, because I want to wake you and all your viewers and listeners up to the systemic crisis that we have right now. Okay, we are...
Well, that implies that I'm asleep, which I am not. But I do want to ask you this, because there's a lot of people who believe, because there's a pattern to what Trump does. We've seen him do this before, which is how he's gotten the name, Taco Boy or whatever. Trump always chickens out. How much of what he does, be it Greenland, be it arresting Don Lemon, be it going after Tish James, be it all the other bullshit that he's been doing, how much of that at the end of the day is just to distract from Minneapolis, that 2 people were murdered, to distract from Epstein, because he throws out these bombs and then the courts smack it down, or he chickens out and then he goes on to the next bomb? Is that maybe what's happening here, if I want to be as optimistic as I can?
Okay, but you see, you said you weren't asleep, right? Mm-hmm. You just said that you're not asleep. I'm implying that you're asleep, okay? But I got to wake you up a little bit more then. Okay, let me hear. Hold on.
Hey, I'm
because you got to really...
just playing devil's advocate.
No, but you got to pay attention, because first of all, they're releasing 3 million things this morning. The Epstein files, everything's been redacted related to Trump. It just took them months to get whatever Trump's name was, or his visual images, or whatever he did related to Epstein. Remember, one of the victims said that there's stuff in the videos that if it came out, Trump would have to resign, right? Mm-hmm. And so now his Department of Justice has gone through there to get rid of it. Now, the bad news is the KGB and others have the videos, so they're going to hold it over the president's head. So the distraction is related to that. That's some of that. And there is a distraction going on, but there's also a money grab going on, right? So Trump wants to distract all of us while he's taking a couple of $2 billion for himself, right? So Trump's goal has always been, I don't need to serve the American people, don't care about the American people. My goal is to create chaos, make you have your attention and your eyeballs on me, and then my secondary, or perhaps tied for equal, goal is to make money. Those are the 2 goals. They've always been the 2 goals. And look, for me, I'm looking at the situation just back from Europe. I spent 2 weeks in Switzerland, 1 at the World Economic Forum, and then I flew to London. And met with European leaders. Prime Minister Carney is a personal friend of mine. I've met with business leaders all over Europe, and he's breaking the alliance. He's breaking the European alliance. Mm-hmm. He's forcing European countries, European companies to rethink their strategy related to the United States. By the way, he's stopping people at the border. There's a young American student that I know. I guess he had pictures on his phone that I don't know how they didn't like it, so they took his phone and his laptop. 8 months later, hasn't gotten his laptop or phone back. They're doing things to intimidate people into silence. The Fortune 100 CEOs, they will not say a word. And by the way, if you say a word, and one word was said where Jamie Dimon said, hey, I'm not going to give the money to the ballroom because the next administration comes in could cause me a problem. I said, okay, great. $5 million lawsuit against Jamie Dimon. $10 billion lawsuit now against the IRS and the Treasury Department. Okay, so I don't know. Andy, you tell me. This is some serious stuff, man. And this is stuff that like we have nobody in the country. This will be, if we get through this, and I'm an optimist, so I believe we will get through it. But if you're 50 years out writing this history, you're going to be like, okay, how did that happen? Would Eisenhower have allowed that to happen? Would and you say, well, Joe McCarthy, they let Joe McCarthy run Roost, but that was a 3-year thing. This guy's looming over the United States for 10 years. Very, very consequential, systemic, long-term, and in many cases, Andy, irreparable damage. You have the Prime Minister of the UK visiting with President Xi and more or less saying to you that Xi, despite his authoritarianism, is a more practical bilateral partner than the United States. You've got the country of Canada, our northern border, are practicing war games now because they've been told by President Trump that he's thinking about invading them. Okay, but that's what he said.
Don't you think that's just nonsense? I mean,
okay, if you're a responsible prime minister and the president of the United States is saying he's contemplating an invasion to take over the country, and we're going to call you the 51st state and you yourself the governor, what do you do with your Department of Defense? You say, oh, it's just nonsense.
No. I'm not saying
you
they
do, but
should
you
prepare.
do have.
I'm
you
saying
do have Five Eye.
Is Trump just spewing nonsense? But
Okay, well,
they
you
still have to
Five
prepare
Eye.
for it.
Andy, you have Five Eye intelligence that have caught the troops in exercise to potentially invade Greenland. So now you're telling me, what do you want to do? If you're the PM of Canada and you're me or you're going to go to your Defense Department and say, okay, let's war game this. How do we defend ourselves? So now, what are you going to do? Are you going to ask for the UK to put air bases and put their military alongside of yours to defend yourself against the United States? So you have to think about the nonsense of all this, that you have to think about what percentage of mind share are the leaders around the world. These are corporate leaders and governmental leaders. They have to now contemplate the insanity of Donald Trump. So Tim Cook, also known as Tim Apple, he's got a business he's running, but then he's got mind share related to how he's going to deal with the forces of Donald Trump. Also, the Supreme Court was supposed to render a decision on the tariffs.
It's a big case.
Okay, if they were rendering a decision with him, don't you think they would have released it already? So they didn't. They haven't released it because they're afraid of the fallout. They're afraid of the political consequences. Okay, so we're in new territory, my friend. This is new territory, and we don't have any help. The founders, if we met with all of them right now, 250 years after the founding, they said, yeah, well, we anticipated there could have been a nut in the executive branch, but we thought there'd be moral, scrupulous leaders in the other two branches of government that would bring down the nut in the executive branch.
Well,
But we don't have that.
You mentioned before something that I happen to share your opinion of, and that is that we are going to get out of this. I'm curious to know, though, how are we going to do that, in your opinion? Is it going to be the courts that save us? Is it going to be the electorate? Is it going to be a combination of things? How do we get out of this?
Well, I think we're going to get out of this as a direct result of Republican self-interest. It's not going to be the courts or anything. It's going to be the classic, what is in the self-interest of younger Republican leadership. And they're fixing their ties in the morning or doing their hair and makeup, seeing the 48th president. And so whether it's J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, John Thune, you pick the person, they see themselves as president. They don't see Donald Trump as president in 2028. And so the way we're getting out of this is, hey, sorry, man, the last line of defense here is the term limits of the Constitution, and you're an 82, 83-year-old guy, and you're gone. Okay, and then with that extinguishment is the personality cult, and then anybody else that replaces him will be less formidable, would be less threatening. I don't think J.D. Vance can put out a tweet and cause a primary system to reverse,
Right.
Like Donald Trump. I don't think J.D. Vance is even respected enough by the Republicans. He was excoriated a few months back on the whole Argentinian situation. They would never do that to Donald Trump. So the way we're getting out of this is the term limit. And the way we're getting out of this is the self-interest of these Republican leaders that want to be president. And so they'll kick Trump out of office, even though he'll want to run for re-election. You know, I'm worried about the midterms. And the Democrats say, well, don't worry about the midterms. The blue states, it's a decentralized electorate, decentralized electoral system. We're going to win the House. Well, number one, you've overly gerrymandered the House. You're only down to 22 of the 435 seats. That's it. There's only 22 that are going to be potentially contested. They're in the purplish areas of the country still. They haven't strained those out with gerrymandering. And so it's a very limited group of people. And Trump is going to put troops in those areas. Okay, he's not putting troops, ICE, National Guard. He's not putting them in red states. He's putting them in blue states because the goal is to suppress the vote. The goal is to keep black and brown people away from the voting booth. And so, you know, it's going to have a big impact on the midterm elections. And you have to answer the question, maybe not you, but somebody, well, what is Tulsi Gabbard, who's DNI, doing in Georgia? What was she doing down there as it related to the election stuff? And so, you know, what should we be thinking about in terms of what Trump's going to do? And if you listen to Jack Smith's testimony and you listen to the damning accusations, and let's say you only believed 50% of them, Trump would be jailed for 25 years. So you've got a systemic crisis, and you've got a group of spineless jellyfish that are in places where they're supposed to rebut the person that's acting like this, and they're not willing to do that due to political expediency. But yes, you will get out of this, assuming that we can survive the next 3 years, because they'll push him out of office as a result of the term limit.
Yeah. In our last few minutes here, breaking news this morning, Trump has announced that he's nominating Kevin Warsh as the new Fed chair. As a business guy who's got his hand all over this kind of stuff, what do you make of this guy? What do you make of
listen,
this situation?
I know Kevin. I know Kevin for a very long time. Remember, he was a Fed governor, a Republican Fed governor. He's a monetarist. He's a hawk. Okay, there's a reason why gold sold off 11% this morning. Right. And so Trump is looking for him to lower rates and to gun it and have Trump be the Fed chair. There's no indication in Kevin Warsh's personality that he's going to be like that. He's been customarily an institutionalist. He's a hawkish monetarist that believes in the stability of the U.S. dollar. And if you look at where things are right now, the Kevin Warsh of years ago would have voted alongside of Jerome Powell this week in holding rates steady. And so, you know, he did a great job of fawning over the president and getting the president in a position to appoint him. But I'm going to make a prediction here on your podcast that Trump will be laying into Kevin Warsh inside of the next 6 to 12 months.
Of course.
He will be blasting him for not doing exactly what he wants him to do. And Warsh's attitude is going to be, I've got the job and I'm going to outlast Trump in this job. And Trump is going to be sorely disappointed with Kevin Warsh.
Warsh was up for the post once before, and guess who beat him? Guess who Trump appointed over Warsh?
Yeah. And by the way, I was involved with that because that happened in 2017. And Trump said at the time Warsh was too hawkish for him. He didn't think he was going to be lenient enough. Remember, there were three choices there. There was Janet Yellen, who arguably was the most dovish of them. There was Jerome Powell, and there was Kevin Warsh. Okay, he went with the mama bear pick of Jerome Powell at the insistence of Steve Mnuchin. The reason why Mnuchin is on the outs with Trump, and everybody eventually gets to be on the outs with Trump, but Mnuchin's on the outs with Trump because he recommended Powell. And I think history will judge Powell well, not perfectly, but given the circumstances, the COVID-19 crisis, all the different things that have gone on, he's generally done a very good job. He's been a sober person and a man of restraint. He also embarrassed Trump at the Federal Reserve construction site by pointing out to Trump that what he was talking about was a bunch of lies and nonsense. Okay, so Trump's not going to forget that. He's gonna stay on him. And one last point, since you're asking me about this, Jerome Powell's entitled to stay on as a Fed Board of Governor. The pick that Bissent wanted was Chris Waller, because Jerome Powell said if they pick Waller, who was his sort of choice, even though Waller is a dove and voted against him in the last vote, he would come off the board. And so Bissent went to Trump and said, if you pick Waller, you get 2 picks to the Board of Governors. You got to replace Waller. Powell's going to come off the board, and you're going to replace him. So now you pick Warsh, and you likely have no picks at the governor level, right? So again, it's a great decision for Wall Street. It's a great decision for people that want the dollar to stay strong or get stronger. But it's not going to be the decision that Trump ultimately wants. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Wall Street doesn't seem to be reacting very well to it today.
Well, I think they are reacting to it well, but not, it's not going up the prices because Wall Street's looking at it saying, okay, this guy is not going to move rates as aggressively as Trump wants, right? So yes, it's selling off, but it's selling off, in my opinion, for positive reasons, because trust me, we don't have time on your program, but you want a stronger dollar versus a weaker dollar. Trust me, it's just better for the system, and it's better for us to maintain our reserve currency status and the flow of capital into the United States if the dollar is relatively strong. And I think Warsh represents that. And not bad for asset prices in the short term, but great for the economy in the long term.
Quick observation before you go.
I
love your nicknames for people in the Trump administration. Howard Buttnick. My favorite.
Coward Nutlick. Yep.
My favorite, Mrs. Doubtfire for Susie Wiles. Do you have any others?
Yeah, come on. No, I mean those are pretty good, right?
Mrs. Doubtfire, right? You can't
Weather Vane Rubio. I mean, look, Rubio is the man. Rubio's the man. Rubio, I watched that testimony the other day. He's just totally embarrassing himself left and right. He's just a series of hypocrisy and contradiction. So, but listen, I'm with you, Andy. I think we're going to survive it, but it's going to be a really difficult 3 years. He's going to go exponential from here. So that's my prediction.
All right, Mooch, always a pleasure. Come back soon.
Good to be on with you, brother.
All right, take care. This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Langell. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.